This week's show focuses a lot on Tesla factories, both in production and not. We also get to hear a bit about 4680 cells, another Powerpack project, some big full self-driving news, and much more. This is Tesla Tidbits episode number 644 for February 28th and March 7th, 2021. This show is brought to you by my supporter, Brad. Brad wants to encourage all of you to consider joining him as a supporter of Tesla Tidbits on patreon.com for as little as $1 a month. Let's join together to keep the Tesla Tidbits coming. This week's show combines last week and this week, as illness had me down during my normal recording time frame, and I didn't want to miss out on some important stories. Our lead story this week is really sort of a nothing burger, to be honest, but it's still interesting to know what happened and why. Sawyer Merritt led the charge with supporting tweets from Drive Tesla Canada and Whole Mars blog, in addition to Elon himself, breaking the news that the Fremont factory was idled for about 2 days last week. Elon let us know that the issue was a shortage of parts, seemingly related to the big freeze that Texas experienced earlier in the month. Originally, the shutdown was a bit more disconcerting, with workers told not to report back for 2 weeks. However, it looks like whatever unlucky supplier experiencing the issue got things back on track much earlier than anticipated, and workers were told to report back after only 2 days. Whole Mars blog obtained a copy of an email from Elon to the Tesla employees sent on February 25th explaining the situation. Quote, "We are experiencing some part supply issues, so took the opportunity to bring Fremont production down for a few days to do equipment upgrades and maintenance. Fremont production is back up and running as of yesterday and will spool up rapidly to full 3/Y production over the next several days. Model S/X production lines are almost done retooling and will be aiming for max production next quarter. There is high demand, so we will soon need to go back to 2 shifts for S/X. Please recommend friends to recruiting. Thanks, Elon." End quote. Maybe the best piece of news out of this is that the Model S and Model X refresh has gone over so well that they need to add shifts for the elder vehicles in the fleet. It just goes to show how much the old styling was holding back sales for them. But the issue we run into if they'd done this earlier is that if they had that demand, plus the demand for the 3 and the Y, there's just not enough capacity to be able to produce them all at the one factory. With the Y well launched at this point, it's likely safe to say that the pre-order backlog is well completed, and now some capacity can be diverted for extra attention on the S and X lines. Tidbit number 2 is rumblings on Giga Berlin production starting, according to Tasmanian. Tasmanian cites a tweet that Whole Mars blog received. The German railway had told one of its suppliers to plan for transport of containers at the Berlin factory beginning in May for prototype production and July or August for full production. Of course, this is only one source, so we can't really nail this down as fact, but it's one of those times you run into info that is very, very specific, and when you run across those, they tend to pan out. The story behind the story here is that Berlin is set to produce vehicles using 4680 cells, and this would be a great indicator that Tesla is feeling good about the state of that product if they are looking to spool up the factory in 2 months. Here's hoping this is in fact real, as our friends in Europe will be about to see much shorter lead times on their vehicle orders. Tidbit number 3 is for all of you folks hoping to get that sweet, sweet full self-driving goodness activated on your cars. Elon was on Twitter talking full self-driving and let some nuggets drop. First up was that beta build version 8.1 currently, quote, "normally drives me around with no interventions," end quote. But better than that was following saying, quote, "next version is a big step change beyond that. Tesla is solving a major part of real-world AI," end quote. When asked about a timeline as to if the beta would roll out to a wider group, he replied saying, quote, "yes, beta will be offered much more widely when version 9 is done, hopefully next month," end quote. Finally, another asked when public release would be available, positing maybe Q2 as a possibility, and Elon said, quote, "sounds about right, but we want to be very careful with this transition period," end quote. Now, it's always good to remind all of our newer Tesla fans to be wary of Elon time, as this seems to be an awfully aggressive timeline for full public release. While many of the videos have been impressive, eagle-eyed fans will notice mistakes by the software in some. Elon is very right to say that the company must be very careful with this transition. Transitioning it too fast could set back the entire autonomous vehicle industry if the vehicles are causing at-fault accidents. Better to make sure the software is better than awesome before putting it in John Q. Public's hands than to rush it and end up in regulatory hell as a result. And then, in late breaking news, Elon tweets more on this during show production. Elon confirms that they'll be doubling the beta size with the version 8.2 release of the FSD suite, and to quote, let us know, end quote, if you want to be in the beta. He didn't say specifically how, but I'd imagine lobbing a reply at that tweet, which will be in the show description, is your best bet. A Tesla rep could then DM you for your Tesla account and look up your car to let you in. As I also said to a follower, please note that if this happens, do not give them your password. If you're asked for your password, that's a sure sign the person DMing you is a dirtbag scammer, as Tesla has no need for your password to do this. But then there was more. Elon followed up saying that version 8.3 of the full self-driving beta literally has about 1,000 improvements, and he expects release of that in about 2 to 3 weeks. Some great news there on the FSD front, and the more they work on this, the more progress there is, the more confident I'm becoming that this will be a product in the general public's hands before the year is out. Tidbit number 4 is some news potpourri about the new 4680 cells. Inside EVs reports that LG is in the process of building a pilot production line to build 4680 cells for Tesla. They become the second third-party supplier to dive into this effort after Panasonic, who is already reportedly doing the same. And while these developments are important, our friends at Holmar's blog make a good point in a tweet reminding everyone that these 4680 cells are really only meant for the top-of-the-line vehicles, where maximum power and maximum weight reduction are of utmost importance. You won't see these in standard range Model 3s because that application can be handled more economically with the existing 2170 cells utilizing the LFP chemistry instead. Cheaper chemistry enabling the same results allows for better margins for Tesla and cheaper pricing for owners on the lower end. So you can definitely expect, at least in the short to mid-term, that Tesla factories and partners will continue pumping out multiple form factors of Tesla cells. Tidbit number 5 comes from our favorite hacker, Green the Only. Remember way back when Elon mentioned that driver profiles would move to the cloud, paving the way for you to sit down in any Tesla and have it conform to you just like your own by signing in? Well, in Green's poking and prodding of the car software, he found code, which is currently not active, but definitely meant to provide this functionality. This has been an item that has long been dormant, and now we're randomly getting development around it. Hopefully, we can expect to see it soon. Tidbit number 6 today is one of the rare times I dip into the energy news for Tesla, and this story comes from TechAU on Twitter. Everyone is aware of Tesla's massive battery projects, and its most famous one in Australia. However, not one to rest on past accomplishments, Tesla has won the business to construct another massive battery in Australia, this time as part of the Victorian Big Battery. Megapack will supply 350 megawatts of power with 450 megawatt hours of storage for the project, landing yet another major contract for Tesla Energy in Australia. Congratulations to the energy side on the big victory. And finally, our last tidbit of the week comes courtesy of Teslarati, and it's another bill in the US being introduced to revive EV subsidies for all manufacturers. The bill is being called the Electric Cars Act and would bring Tesla and others back into the game to be eligible for the credit. As the current credit stands, once a manufacturer sells 200,000 eligible vehicles, the credit phases out for the manufacturer. However, this bill looks to improve the current rules and extend the credit out for 10 more years beyond the current expiration, as well as remove the vehicle count restriction per manufacturer. It also would extend the charging infrastructure credit by 10 years as well. A new add-on for the credit, though, would allow folks with a lower tax liability to spread the credit out over 5 years in order to be able to take full advantage of the credit, rather than seeing most of it go to waste. Now, if you're skeptical as to this passing, I wouldn't blame you, and if you also asked why this one is different from past attempts, again, I wouldn't blame you a bit, but I'll tell you why. One of the top priorities of President Biden after taking office was supporting green initiatives, so there will be no resistance if this bill makes it to his desk for signing. On the other side of things, the makeup of the legislature that would vote on this before is now more environmentally friendly than it was in the past. I think this bill has some legs and actually has a chance to pass. I'll keep an eye on this for sure for everyone, as I know at least in this house, it may very well influence a purchase decision. That will do it for this week's mega-sized show. Thanks to all my patrons supporting the show at patreon.com/Tesla Tidbits. I wanted to acknowledge that I've seen a few longtime supporters drop recently, and I wanted to thank them so much for their longtime support. At the same time, if you've been on the fence of supporting and found you enjoy the show and that I'm providing some value to you, please do consider supporting the show at whatever level you feel is appropriate. It helps make things possible like the new webcam that the super patrons will be enjoying once I get this workflow figured out, and I'm also looking into upgrading show production again with a new iMac, and as we all know, that's certainly not cheap. And of course, I can't forget my super patrons supporting the show at the $10 plus level. They are Ryan Scarborough, Lee Sweet, William Henry Crew III, Dorian Steve Guberman, Ralph and Cheryl Waterhouse, Todd Sullivan, Zortec LED Canada, Raymond and Deborah Malkowitz, T Sportline, Vicky Kirk, Ricky Johnston, Nathan Garza, Ed Patterman, and Sunil Joseph. If you have feedback for me, the best way to be heard is to tweet at Tesla Tidbits and use the hashtag AskTeslaTidbits if you'd like your question to be considered for the show. Until next week, keep it charged and hit the road.